The story of the Loop Trolley is a tale about a dream by a man named Joe Edwards. He had already built a thriving entertainment district along the Delmar Loop. Now he wanted to revive the streetcar system that once traveled down the same street. In such a bustling tourism area, this vintage streetcar system could become the next San Francisco cable car. Across the state in Kansas City, a brand new modern streetcar system is already enjoying massive success in both ridership and ancillary development. New streetcar lines are being built in peer cities across the country. The Loop Trolley could become even better, and the Delmar Loop will finally be put on the map. How could this project ever fail? Let me spit some numbers at you. During its first year, the Loop Trolley was projected to earn 394,000 paid fares. After 11 months of operations, the trolley had only sold a meager 15,776 tickets, and the decision was made to cease operations. 1 month later, the trolley rolled into its station for what may be the final time. By now, the trolley had become a symbol of governmental ineptitude and the butt of jokes around the St. Louis region. How could this project have gone off the rails so quickly? To understand the context behind the trolley and its ultimate demise, we have to go back to the era of the streetcar, back when the Delmar Loop was in its infancy. In 1904, the Delmar Loop was nothing but an amusement outpost at the very edge of town. Streetcars brought St. Louisans out of the heat and pollution of the city to the amusement park and clean air at the end of the line. Over the years, Delmar densified, and by the 1950s was a thriving commercial district surrounded by private, sprawling estates of the St. Louis elite. Streetcars were still the primary mode of transportation in the city until the rise of the private automobile at the conclusion of World War II. Streetcar systems designed to compete with pedestrians and horses suddenly struggled to adapt to roads now optimized for vehicular traffic. By 1966, the original streetcar system running through the loop ceased operations as the city of St. Louis opted to replace its streetcars with motorized buses. Around the same time as the closure, the loop was also facing some tough times. Suburbanization had depleted many of St. Louis's urban districts as wealthy shoppers and residents abandoned the city in droves. The Delmar Loop fell into a period of decline that would last until... Say what you will about his trolley, but the success enjoyed by the Delmar Loop can largely be attributed to Joe Edwards. This man turned the loop around from a drab and half-abandoned shopping street into one of St. Louis's most enduring and successful entertainment districts. Joe Edwards' vision can be seen everywhere you look along this stretch of Delmar. Because of him, we have Blueberry Hill, Pinup Bowl, the Moonrise Hotel, the renovated Tivoli Theater, the Peacock Diner, the Pageant, Delmar Hall, and the St. Louis Walk of Fame. The Delmar Loop was a resounding success, and was even named one of the 10 best streets in America by the American Planning Association. But what could be done to bring the loop to the next level? In 1997, Joe Edwards began to dream of reviving the streetcar system that once rolled down his street. He dreamt of a system that would run from his beautiful Delmar Loop, extend east down Delmar, and eventually connect to the Missouri History Museum in Forest Park. Connecting this area could theoretically fill in the underdeveloped section of Delmar and Bolivar with new retail and transit-oriented development. Visitors to the attractions in Forest Park would hopefully ride the trolley and empty their wallets at the loop's many attractions. In 2005, Edwards purchased 2 Peter Witt streetcars to display around the Loop and History Museum for publicity and to eventually be added to the system. But as it would turn out, being left outside in the elements for a decade was detrimental to the streetcars, and they would never be introduced to service. In 2010, the trolley became more than just a pipe dream after receiving a $25 million urban circulator grant from the Federal Transit Administration. The rest of the $51 million total price tag would come from the Loop Trolley Transportation Development District, funded by a 1% sales tax on businesses along the Loop Trolley route. It took another 5 years of planning, red tape, and uncertainty, but in 2015, the trolley was finally ready to begin construction. A new set of vintage streetcars was purchased and began renovation. Construction of the tracks moved at a snail's pace, and, like most invasive construction projects, received the ire of business owners and residents alike. Major construction has finally wrapped up. Tracks are laid, victorious press releases have been written, and trolleys can at long last be seen rolling down the rails of Delmar for the first time in 50 years. The abandoned Delmar High School has been renovated into a trolley barn and system headquarters. Staff has even been hired. Testing should be completed with an opening in late spring 2017, just in time for the summer rush. Then came the delays, and the delays, and the delays, and the delays, and the delays. Right when it got to the point where most of St. Louis began to think that the trolley would never actually open, they announced that they were finally ready to go. The Loop Trolley is ready for passenger service at long last. Joe Edwards had accomplished his dream. Sort of. Only 2 trolleys would initially be available for the system, as the third was still undergoing renovation, causing the system to run on reduced hours until its completion. Spoiler alert, that day would never come. In the meantime, the trolley would run from noon to 8 on Thursday through Sunday, and until 11 on Friday and Saturday with 25-minute headways. On November 15, 2018, the Loop Trolley held its ribbon-cutting ceremony. It was a day that many thought would never come. Politicians and stakeholders gathered to publicly thank each other and celebrate the opening of this project that only took 21 years to bring to fruition. During its first week of operations, it actually looked pretty good for the trolley. Ridership was relatively robust, and people were excited. Unfortunately, as weather got colder, the introductory fare-free period ended and the hype wore off, it became clear that the trolley was not pulling in anywhere close to its projected ridership. Other major problems also began to show their face as the trolley continued operations. Right off the bat, passengers had issues with the ticketing systems. These kiosks were unnecessarily complicated and often required the trolley operator to physically get out and assist passengers with the machine. Even when printed, the QR codes on the ticket were often a challenge to be scanned. When ticket machines broke, trolley operators didn't have the authority to effectively solve problems. The trolley also shared the road with cars parked along the street, leading to some pretty tight squeezes. If somebody parks their car irresponsibly outside of the lines, the trolley wouldn't be able to pass by. The only recourse was to call a tow truck, which would often take up to 45 minutes to arrive. Usually by then, the driver hops back into their car and just drives away with zero recourse. Many of these incidents could have easily been avoided simply by removing some of the more problematic street parking spaces. The Loop Trolley took a bad traffic situation and made it even worse. Other city streetcar systems cause congestion, but when surrounded by a nice street grid, traffic can divert around the route. The Loop Trolley, however, was surrounded by private neighborhoods and disconnected streets, forcing east-west vehicular traffic onto Delmar and Forest Park Parkway alone. This created a bottleneck situation that caused traffic to back up behind the slow-moving trolley that shared much of its route with cars, due to running directly in the middle of the street. Even with the limited service and traffic issues, the trolley still could have succeeded if it wasn't for an ill-advised fare of $2 a person or $5 for an all-day pass. As the Loop Trolley had no association with the Bi-State Transit Agency, Metrolink and Metrobus tickets and passes did not transfer to the trolley. When you consider that free parking is plentiful around the entirety of the Loop Trolley route, there is simply no utilitarian reason for the average person to spend the money to ride the trolley. If a family of 4 wants to take a round trip from the History Museum to the attractions of the Loop, it would cost $16 and likely take nearly as long as just walking. Not to mention, a large portion of the route is already redundant from the start when you consider the existing Metrolink stations. Long headways, inconsistent schedules, and unprotected stations also killed ridership anytime weather was too hot, too cold, or too rainy. Most days, trolleys would only service a handful of paying customers. Nobody in their right mind would consider the trolley as a serious transit solution, especially when compared to the much more effective Metrolink system, but even the tourists it was designed to attract largely stayed away. A fee, even a marginal one, causes the average consumer to consider, why should I ride the trolley and is it worth the money? Eliminating the fare would change this equation to, The trolley is free and I'm already here, so why shouldn't I ride it? After a slow winter start, it was hoped that the warmer weather would bring more riders to the system. While that was true, ridership was still embarrassingly low, peaking in the month of August 2019 with 1,701 tickets sold, for a total of $3,733 in revenue. With another cold winter on the horizon, it was clear that the trolley was in serious trouble. A last-ditch effort to bring interest to the trolley began in October with the short-lived Laugh Tracks series that hosted local comedians on board the trolley. Yikes. While these events actually showed glimpses of promise, nothing could stop the trolley's slow crawl towards insolvency. In November 2019, the trolley announced that it would need a $200,000 cash infusion to continue operations through the winter and an additional $500,000 just to get through 2020. This time, nobody was willing to bail out the trolley. Hours and frequency were further reduced as the trolley continued chugging towards its demise. On December 6th, the trolley announced that it would be ceasing operations on December 29th, 2019, just over a year after ribbon cutting. On the last day of service, the trolley saga came to a poetic finish, as the last trolley of the day broke down in front of the pageant. What a year it had been. Since its closure, the federal government has threatened to demand a refund of its $25 million grant for the trolley. In order to prevent this, Bi-State Development, the organization that runs Metrolink and Metro bus service, announced a potential plan to save the trolley. Bi-State would run the trolley for 4 years with full integration into the Metro's ticketing and scheduling. The third car would be brought into operation, allowing the trolley to be able to run at full capacity with shortened headways. This plan would have cost a minimal amount of Bi-State money due to the funds available from the existing Loop Trolley Transportation Development District, along with some leftover federal money set aside for operations. Unfortunately, by this point, the trolley had become politically radioactive. When the plan was brought to the Bi-State Board of Operations, the motion to send it to the Board of Directors was not seconded, effectively killing the plan. But Joe Edwards is not finished with this trolley yet, though. In March, it was announced that the trolley could potentially resume operations as soon as April 2020, albeit on a seasonal basis. This was made possible by the continued accrual of funds to the Loop Trolley Transportation Development District. The elusive third car was even being seen tested as recently as March 2020. And then shit went down. In my humble opinion, the trolley has never been given a real chance to succeed, especially when the only metric to measure its success is paid fares. As a business, the Loop Trolley is an absolute failure. They created a product that barely anybody would ever be willing to pay for. With that being said, though, even the best public transportation systems rarely turn a profit. In the modern world, transit is not about turning a profit as much as it is about enhancing the urban fabric along the line. Transit can be used as a tool to concentrate dense development and provide a useful amenity to those living along the line. On the economic front, it can be argued that the trolley has actually succeeded in pushing development east down Delmar and de Bolivar. The Delmar Divine, a project commissioned by Build-A-Bear founder Maxine Clark, will soon be employing thousands of nonprofit workers in a formerly abandoned hospital. The Everly, a massive student housing project and the tallest building in the area, was also recently completed on Delmar. And a massive complex of transit-oriented development has already been announced at the intersection of Pershing and de Bolivar. Also consider that the trolley's dismal performance at the fare box would make it relatively cheap to simply make the trolley free. With monthly revenues peaking at just below $4,000, just making the thing free isn't that expensive. Any subsidized plan to revive the trolley should consider eliminating the fare. Visitors to the Loop and local residents alike will ride the trolley because why not? I would like to see a year trial of the trolley running all 3 cars at no cost and with reasonable hours before giving it up. If ridership remains abysmal, then go ahead and rip up the tracks, but I would hazard a guess that if structured correctly, the trolley could become an indispensable part of the culture and fabric of the Loop. It just needs a real chance to prove itself. Now, obviously, some of the recent current events have thrown the trolley back into a cloud of uncertainty. Retail tax receipts in the Loop are significantly down, along with most entertainment districts in the world, and April has come and gone without a reopening. Who knows if the Loop Trolley will rise again to see another day. The world will look different when we come out of this, but one thing is for certain, if the trolley ever does come back, make the damn thing free to ride.